I think I see a tactic, but I have to calculate it. So there. That seems to work. Okay, let's go. 10-minute game. Hope you guys are all ready. Let's get started with Gabo. Let's play e4. Thank you, Shib on Amazon. Okay, Scandi. It's been a while. We have not... Okay, knight f6. So this is an old variation of the Scandinavian where black delays the capture on d5. Black wants to take back on the knight. And I'm going to play a line that my coach taught me years and years ago. If you're seeing this for the first time, you might say, well, why not c4 defending the pawn? And I'll explain this after the game. The line that my coach taught me, this is one of the most reputable lines, is you give this check on b5. Okay, so this move should make sense. You're developing with tempo, but now the move that might be confusing. You drop the bishop back to e2. And black takes on d5, and the point is that the bishop on d7, ooh, now that is really bad. Black just gives away a pawn. Okay, we're going to take this. No idea what that was. All right, now we're just up a pawn for no comp. And the question here is how we want to structure our development. We can play d4 and occupy the center, but maybe black has c5. So we can develop a little bit more modestly with something like knight f3. On the other hand, I think d4 is just more ambitious. So I'll show the idea of the line afterward. Yeah, e6 is some sort of weird move. Yeah, so we go d4. Okay, he doesn't go c5, so we're fine. Let's just develop knight f3 and then castle. Yeah, so we're just up a pawn. No comp. All right. So again, in such positions, there's always going to be multiple ways that we can play. As Hess would say, one of the best ways of restricting this knight is to push the pawn up to c3 and create a pawn chain and make sure our central pawn is well defended. We can also, I think some of you might be tempted to play c4. That I like a little bit less because the center becomes a little bit flimsy. Black can play like bishop g4, for example. So if we're pushing the c pawn, I would prefer to push it to c3. Or we could start with the move bishop g5, for example. So let's start by developing our bishop, and then based on what black does, we'll make a decision. Okay, bishop g4. Yeah, so this is exactly my point. If our pawn had been on c4, black would have been threatening this tactic, bishop f3 and then knight d4. And because of the standoff between the queens, you won't be able to take the knight back. So it's very important here, I think, to play c3 and protect the d4 pawn against various shenanigans. Now you might say, well, a lot of people's reservations about playing this move is that it's not clear where to put the knight, but if you've watched the speedrun long enough, you know that knight bd2 is a completely legitimate developing move in such positions. Ooh. So this is a very risky move. It allows us to take on f6 and ruin black's structure. But there is a downside to doing that. First of all, we give up our bishop, which is pretty good bishop. And second of all, black has this idea of going king h8 and rook g8 and actually using the pawn structure to his benefit. Thank you, Johan, another sub. So believe it or not, I'm actually not enthralled by bishop takes f6. I don't think this is as slam dunk of a move as you might think it is. And so we're actually going to refrain from it and complete our development with knight bd2. And maybe a bit later, if black still allows us to do this, we'll take. Actually, maybe it would have been better to take immediately. Who knows? Yeah, now he's got his pieces to pretty good squares. Okay, let's go rook e1. Let's continue improving our position. Thank you, J-Bo, for the sub. The J Dizzler also. Ooh, rook e6. All right, so the idea of this move is to double on the e-file and put pressure on our bishop here. And also the fact that the bishop is on g4 is quite annoying as well. I have an idea. I have a very interesting idea. I think I see a tactic, but I have to calculate it. So there. That seems to work. So the tactic starts, maybe I miscalculated this. We're going to take on f6 now, and we're hoping for rook takes f6. Yes. So does anybody see an idea here? If I calculated it correctly, this might win the game. If I calculated this move correctly, it might win the game. So anytime you have a standoff between these two bishops, right? I've talked about this many, many times. There's a particular move that you should be aware of. It's an idea that's quite common. Some of you are seeing... Oops! Oh, I mouse slipped. I didn't mean to do that. Oh my god, that's hilarious. 95 was the move. Lol. Oh my gosh, that's bad. 95, I think, was just winning on the spot. Yeah, I was showing and I clicked the wrong square. That's funny, but it's not the end of the world. Okay, let's go h3. Yeah, 95 just ended the game. I'll show this. I'll show this afterward. Okay, so we're still up a pawn, but now we're in a little bit of danger on the king side. Okay, I want to play g4 and get rid of this pin. Yeah, let's go g4. Let's get the heck rid of this pin, and then Rifi and Keto the... Ooh. Alright, did I just blunder? Yes, I did. Okay, great. This is bad. This is really bad. I completely forgot about this move. I was discombobulated after that mouse slip. Yeah, I forgot he's got this move. Okay, now I'm going to have to pull out a lost position. Yeah, this is just pathetic. Gotta go here. Okay, now I have to focus. Let's see if I can pull out a swindle. This is completely lost. I just blundered. Well, I was winning and I just made a stupid move. I just made a stupid mouse slip. And now g4 is just ridiculous. I didn't see rook g6. The position is lost, but it's not so easy to find. Oh, and he finds this. Okay, he's also just playing super well. Yeah. I guess here's the only move. The 1900s are really good, so they're capable of finding easy moves. Okay, so I'm down a pawn and virtually getting mated, but there's no... I don't think there's anything forced. And if he gives me some time, I can get my knight into the defense with like knight f3. Or knight e4, maybe. Yeah, so far I've played only moves. Queen h2, king f1. And I don't see the mate. I guess he has rook g6, then I can go queen f3. He goes knight e7, another really good move. But now maybe I can go knight e4, get this knight into the defense. Oh, and he's got to be a little careful, because knight d6 is a threat. Wait, didn't he blunder? Can't I? I don't understand. What if I take? What am I missing? Because the knight on e7 is just hanging. No? Ah, he's got a great move, though. Let's see. Ooh, but then I've got a great response. Oh my god, that's cool. So if he takes it, then I take it. If he takes with the rook, I again take the knight on e7. The bishop on g... Okay. But now I think I have a move. Okay, knight back to e4, yeah. We save the knight. And the crucial thing is that if he goes f5, which I think is going to happen, we have an only move that wins the game. Fethikins. But it's not over yet. This guy's totally incessant. Queen f3, get out of the pin. Yeah, knight f6. Okay, but this is a terrible move. Now he just allows me to take the check. Now it's over. We can also play queen g3 and essentially try to force the queen trade. Queen g3 might be even more accurate, because if we can get a queen trade, then the game is actually over. Wow, that was close. Now we're just up a piece for zero comp, and the attack is evaporated, and we're good. Damn, I'm sorry for the mouse slip. That was disappointing, because the tactic was actually very nice. Okay, now we can go knight g5, so we can actually play aggressively here and try to go for the kill. And I think here a lot of people would just trade. But in such positions, you have to realize that when you're a piece up, you know, at this level, you don't always just want to simplify and bail out. On the other hand, if we go knight g5, maybe he'll go knight h5. And then rook g6. So it's a little annoying. So let's take it. I'll show you what worried me about knight g5 after the game. So after rook f6, again, we have a choice. We can take the pawn on c7 because I'm absolutely not worried about anything down the g file. So I actually do want to take this pawn. And I've said earlier in the speedrun that you want to be very careful about grabbing material when you're, let's say, up a piece. But if there's something you can take for free, and I also missed this move, but it's not dangerous at all. We can just defend this pawn. We can go here, I guess. I'm playing very sloppy though. Okay, now we can take, I guess, on b7, or we can go rook b1. We can do a bunch of different things, and they're all good. Whoa, Juho with the subs. I think rook b1 and rook takes b7 makes sense. Though I'm a tiny bit concerned about rook g6. Oh. Yeah, rook a7, queen d5, and then maybe f3. Not ideal. Okay, so maybe we can cut off his queen with this move, c4, trying to prevent queen d5. And I also have a potential tactical idea. We're threatening rook b8. Yeah, I think rook b8 here is very strong. Oh, but then he takes on g2. Oh my god. Not easy. I should have played rook b8 on the previous move. Okay, so let's play prophylactically. Let's ask ourselves, what is black's idea here? Well, he's got all sorts of shenanigans like queen g4, queen e4. So what is the root of the problem? The root of the problem is that this rook on g6 is unbelievably annoying, right? f3 blunders made in one. So what I'm going to do here is go rook b3 and get the rook to frickin' g3 and eliminate this pest on g6. We also have to play fast because it's going to take a while for us to convert this. Now, because the rook is... Okay, now rook g3. And now we're good. Now we're free of the immediate problems. And all we have to do is convert this by, I think, trying to get this c-pawn forward. So what we're going to do is put the rook behind the pawn, just like in an endgame. And then we're going to start pushing. Okay, push. Close our eyes and push. Oh, another 2 subs from Juho. Now let's go queen c3. We can also go queen e3, but it doesn't matter. The key is just we're pushing this pawn to c7, and then eventually what's going to happen is that he's going to put a rook on c8, and then we're going to chase that rook away, or queen away, by using one of 2 methods. If he blockades the pawn or the queen, what should white do here? Really quickly, because I want to keep some time on the clock. What should white play here? Queen g3, very good. So if the queen blockades, he used the method of offering a queen trade to force the queen out. If he blockades the rook, then we use our light skirt bishop to chase the rook away. Very straightforward. Bishop h3 if rook c8. That's what's going to happen, I'm pretty sure. Okay, queen there. It doesn't matter. Same thing. Bishop h3. We just make sure the rook isn't hanging. It's not. We're good, and we're going to win. Okay, so what should we do now? Rook b1, rook b8 is possible, but not the most efficient. The most efficient is actually just to take on f5. Because rook f5, there is c8 equals queen. Easy enough. Let's not make a knight by accident. Yeah, no, just it's over. And now the most efficient is to identify that the 2 pieces are on the same diagonal. And the easy move here is queen to d3. Forcing g6. What is the effect of g6? It opens up the 7th rank, allowing us to deliver ladder mate. And, okay, king g6. Many ways to win here, but because of the pin, the rook is immobile. So we just go rook f8. Easy. GG. Okay, takes f5 and rook h8 is mate. Yeah. Okay. So I think that was an instructive... The fact that I played sloppy is maybe a good thing, in a way. So let's deconstruct this real fast. Okay, so Scandi with knight f6 is a very solid line. White has multiple ways to get a small advantage. The reason that c4 is not as good as it looks is because of this move c6. And if you take on c6, black takes on c6, and you should know that from previous speedrun games that this actually is not a great position for white because of black has total control over the d4 square. And opening a parallel that I could draw with this position is the early f4 Sicilian variation. So if you've been a conscientious consumer of the speedrun, you might remember the black's move here is d5. That's actually why if you want to play the Grand Prix attack, you should start with knight c3. That's the reason. But the point is that after d5 ed, we don't take on d5, we go knight f6. And here white again can go c4. But now black goes e6. And I've had this position a couple of times in the speedrun, and black is just better. Because total control over d4, white's position sucks. So similar concept in this position, where black's going to go e5 and bishop c5 and full comp for the pawn. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, you can play d4 here, and this transposes into the pawn of attack of the Caro-Kann. But, you know, that's kind of like cashing in your lottery ticket for 15 bucks. That's not the best you can do. Although if you play the Panov, you can avoid studying a new opening, new line by playing that. So bishop b5 check, and bishop back to e2. The point here is that we go d4, and the bishop on d7 is very awkward, right? It's cutting connections between all of black's pieces. So what often happens in this position is that black actually moves the bishop again to f5, and white gets a slightly better position. I mean, e6, castles, bishop e7. Now, typically you want to play a3 here to prepare the move c4. If you play c4 immediately, then you allow this very annoying move knight b4. And you kind of have to go like this to prevent knight c2, and this is not desirable. So you go a3, castles, and c4. And white is slightly better because of the better central control, and just a good position for white here. So I would say this is the simplest line. You can study the theory more carefully. And this is a common opening strategy. Again, I could draw a parallel to the Catalan. So in the Catalan, which is this line, one of the main lines for black is to go check, force bishop d2, which is awkward, and then return to e7. This is actually considered sort of the main line. And often white, again, plays bishop d2 to f4 in order to clear up the d2 square for the knight. So, common idea across many openings. Check and then back. So e6, I mean, maybe this is a move. I don't think it is. Okay, so d4. And here I think black makes another inaccuracy. If you're going to play this with black, you have to challenge the center immediately. I think black's only serious move here is c5. Just trying to get stuff going in the center, you know? But we don't have to take this pawn. We can just go knight f3. After knight c6, we can go either c3 or bishop e3. And clearly black has insufficient compensation for the pawn. So I would have probably played c3. But at least this gets like an isolated queen pawn situation where black can claim that he's still doing all right. All right, so maybe d4 is inaccurate because of c5. We can check with the engine. Anyways, black doesn't do it. We go bishop d6, knight f3. Thank you, Speria, for the prime. We develop our pieces. And after knight c6, an instructive moment arises. So I think some of you, when you look at this position, you notice this. And you know, that's, I think, why c4 is such a tempting move, because it threatens a fork. But I was worried about allowing bishop g4. Why is this move dangerous? What happens if white goes knight c3? Who can tell me what mini tactic black has in this position? It's not the end of the world for white. White keeps the pawn advantage, but it's annoying. Yeah, exactly. So you don't take immediately, because here white can just take with the knight, but you need to take on f3 first and then take on d4. And if queen takes, then this is the common trick. Discover check, winning the queen. So if you've blundered this, then you can take on b7. But our center is gone. This knight is strong. The bishop is hanging. Why allow this type of thing, right? White's still better and positive, but this is totally unnecessary. This is why the move c3, I think, is a lot more prudent in such positions. But we decided to develop the bishop first. No particular reason. I think c3 would have also been good. But perhaps here black can play h6 and prevent us from putting the bishop on g5. And I was a little bit worried that we wouldn't have a good square for the bishop, because e3 is a little passive and it might walk into knight g4. f4 is covered and d2 is just terrible. So that was the actual reason I wanted to start with bishop g5. So bishop g4 threatens takes and takes and necessitates c3. And yeah, this is an interesting moment. Thank you, Adrian Claude. Bishop f6. What about h3 first? Where? I don't really like h3 here, because that creates a hook. And there's all sorts of shenanigans here with bishop takes h3 that are, there's no need to allow that. Bishop g4 is not scary. So why didn't I go for this? Because I was worried that he would go king h8 and then rook g8 and start attacking us down the g file. And I also don't really want to give away the dark squared bishop because now black has control over these dark squares. Uncontested control. So maybe this would have been better, but, maybe we can just go like knight e4 or something, attack f6. Another very interesting move here would have been knight h4. I actually missed this move, and if I saw this move, we would have probably gone for this line. Yeah, knight h4 is a very instructive move, by the way. What is the point of it? The point is to offer a bishop trade, but in a very particular way, because if black accepts it, then who can tell me, like, why is this favorable for white? Why is this trade good for white? And why did we put the knight on h4? So reverse engineer it. Like, why would we put the knight specifically on h4? And I can probably find real life examples of this kind of idea. Yeah, the f5 square, right? We have now control over the f5 square. Why is that important? Because the f5 square is just really good here. So we can now play queen h5 or queen f3 and put the knight on f5. We've also gotten rid of black's light squared bishop, which diminishes the effect of anything he can do down the g file. Why? Because the bishop is one of the vehicles of black's attack. Let's just make a bunch of random moves. Here, moves like bishop h3 become very important. So knight h4 is, I think, a super good move. And if black drops the bishop back, we don't go d5 because the bishop takes d5. But what we do play is bishop d3 and queen h5, and this looks terrible. So I missed that, and instead played knight bd2. And now we can't do that because the e2 bishop will be hanging. That's why I got annoyed when rook e8 was played. So what you might notice, the parallel that you might notice is the fact that there's a pin. But obviously, if you play bishop f6 here, well, that's dumb because of queen f6. So can anybody find a very clever sacrifice that ties the queen to the d6 square? Yes, c5. Very good. Ellie the Twitch guy, thank you. Now you play bishop f6, and you forced g takes f6. But that's still not the end of the world for black. How did white follow up? What's the key move? And I think without this, yeah, knight h4. Now it's time for knight h4. Now black said, no, I'm not trading these bishops because now you've got huge problems with knight f5. I'm not sure this is that good, but it worked. And after bishop c8, what did white play now? Just like in our game. Yeah, not bishop g4. That bishop g4 might be good, but bishop d3. Yeah, bishop d3. And now queen h5 is a massive threat. So knight e5, bishop h7 check. And queen c2 check, winning the pawn back. And black's position is terrible. And now black blunders again. Black plays rook h8, and who can find the crusher? And this is so cool because the f5 square is directly involved in everything here. Flustered, no, not knight f5 check. Knight f5 check doesn't work. Bishop takes f5. And if queen f5, you drop the knight. Deflection, right? The bishop is overloaded. It's guarding f5, but it's also guarding b7, so knight takes b7. Yeah, knight takes b7, not b2. This is b7, because you're playing white. And then you win the exchange. Okay. So that's, I think, a good example of this kind of thing happening. So anyways, we played bishop f6, and now I mouse slipped, of course, but knight e5 I think wins the game. So there's 3 different ways the black could capture pieces. First of all, the easiest is bishop takes e5, because here we play bishop takes g4, attacking the queen, attacking the bishop, and black loses a piece. Knight e5 is met with d takes e5, and again, black is busted because the bishop is hanging. And if bishop e2, we just take back and the rook defends the pawn. Or with the queen, but probably with the rook is more accurate. I think this works. Although, I think I see a really cool idea for black here. But anyways, If bishop takes e2, then knight takes d7. And then we can either take the rook on f6 or take the bishop. It doesn't even matter, and we're up in exchange. But the crazy thing is I actually see something here. After knight e5, de, bishop e2. So if queen e2, then black has bishop takes e5 at a minimum. Overloaded queen. But if rook takes e2, I think black has a beautiful save here. There is bishop takes e5 anyway. And notice that there's a standoff between the queens. What does that mean? That means the knight on d2 is very vulnerable. Black goes rook d6. Now we can drop back and defend the knight, but here comes the third rook, rook d8. Or the, yeah. And I actually think that black wins the knight back and equalizes the game. Now, queen e1 doesn't help, right, because of rook takes d2. And this rook is a hero because it's guarding the 7th, or the 8th. Yeah, and the rook is, it's overloaded, but you can't actually deflect it. So maybe knight e5 wasn't winning. I didn't see bishop takes e5. Yeah, I just didn't see this move at all. I stopped calculating here. We'll check with the engine. Anyways, I'm going to have to go in like 3 minutes. Okay, so we're still up a pawn here, and this is just a very careless move. Just a move out of frustration at mouse slipping. We should probably go knight e4 or something to that effect, and still white is up a pawn. But I completely missed. I calculated up to this point, and I missed rook g6. And somehow, despite all the pieces here, we can't defend this bishop. It's a miracle that I even have knight h4. Otherwise, we're mated. I mean, queen g2 is mate. And knight g5, maybe some of you are noticing, also possible. But then queen takes g5. And you could say, oh, and now we have queen f3, but then the knight on d2 drops. So somehow I managed to get my queen into the game, and the game continues. Not sure exactly where black went wrong. Well, knight e7, I think, is a mistake. So I guess it's not so easy to win this. And then after knight e4, this blunders a piece. Black's last chance here, I guess, is to go rook e6 to pin the queen. Yeah, and after knight d6, nothing works for black. Rook e6, knight back to e4. And if f5, then we have queen c4, pinning the rook and winning the game. So, yeah, black just forgot about the importance of the e-file aiming at the e7 knight. Yeah, and once this happens, the rest of the game is pretty straightforward. We'll check with the engine to see where exactly whether black had a win here. I don't see exactly. I don't see a forced win here. So maybe we're in better shape than it appeared. Yeah, so anyways, one last thing I wanted to point out. Once we won the piece, I was contemplating this move knight g5, trying to force the rook trade on our terms. And I really didn't like the response knight h5, attacking the queen. It's a very instructive move. Now you might say, well, what's the problem? Like, why can't we just go queen g4? Well, now all of a sudden black has rook g6, and the knight is in trouble. We can play f4, but then there's knight takes f4. So this leads to unnecessary complications. You could say, oh, well, we can start with rook takes e6. Black has to take back. But the problem now is that the f-file opens, and again, black has knight f4, and this is a little bit iffy. So for that reason, I just decided to trade. And the last important moment here was after all of this happens, I think rook b3 is a really important defensive move. Identifying the source of the attack, right? Like, what is causing the annoyance? It's the rook on g6. It's not the queen. The queen is not the actual piece that's doing the heavy lifting. But if you just ignore and go c5, then there's a move like queen f3, and all of a sudden white loses. Because if you drop the queen back to h2 black, we drop the rook. Why not queen g4 instead of queen g5? I'm not sure where. Can you explain rook takes g2? Where? Oh, so rook b8 here is a very tempting move, right? Because you want to trade on f8 and then give a check on e8 and win the game. But what's going on here? There's rook takes g2 check, and then queen g4 check. Now the king can't escape the checks. Normally we'd have queen g3, but now the queen is overloaded because it's also guarding the rook. So black can take it, And probably white is still winning here because of our passers, but black is up a pawn and the king is close, so maybe not. So be very careful about this idea, right, of sacking the rook and then delivering perpetual. Here, this is totally ineffective because of rook g3. Does queen c6 also serve? No, queen c6 blunders the queen to the rook. But I think a lot of people would be tempted to play a move like queen h2, and that's too passive. It gives up pawns unnecessarily, and it doesn't solve the underlying issue. So this solves the problem. We give away one pawn, but we keep the other passer, and black is busted. So if black had played queen c5 here, we would have shifted our queen to e3. This technique is, remember this technique, when a queen blockades a pawn, you can use the threat of a queen trade to force the queen out, especially if you're up material, because the queen trade is always going to be good for us here. Is that should make sense. And we use that technique. Okay, queen c3 is nice because it links the queen and the rook, and again uses the queen trade as a weapon. And now queen g3 is the move that makes the magic happen, because black is in a helpless situation. Yeah, and then we push, and then we support the promotion square, and then we take, and then we win. So I guess even after the mouse slip, it was an instructive moment. Last thing I'll do before I take off is check knight e5 with the engine. Yeah, knight e5 is actually not winning. So interestingly, the engine gives, in this position, the move bishop f6 is a mistake because of that. So we should have just played like h3. So because of this tactic, knight e5, de, bishop e2, rook e2, bishop e5, and rook d6, it turns out that taking on f6 is a bad move. Interesting. Okay. No, the engine gives like h3 here as the best move. And then like knight c4, for example. Just keeping the extra pawn. Nothing special here. It's like +2. Just because white has such control of the center and the extra pawn. But remember this line with bishop b5 check. That's a specific opening takeaway from this game. Then important that it's not just a matter of who controls more of the center. When you have a situation like this, building a pawn chain can be a very, very good way to restrict your opponent's activity. And then obviously interesting stuff happening with knight h4. Yeah, this concept, very instructive move, knight h4 in such positions. Trying to control the f5 square. And hopefully the over the board example helped. All right, guys, I got to take off. But thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the morning stream for a change. Anyways, guys, I got to run. Thanks for hanging out. Good support today. See you guys later. Bye, everybody.